Welcome to Multichain Nation. Today we're thrilled to have Ernesto from OpenZeppelin. He's a smart contract engineer. And we have CJ from Interop Labs, a core engineer. So to be a lot of development talk today, and it's going to be pretty exciting topics. But before we get into all that, let's learn a little bit about what OpenZeppelin is. Ernesto, can you share with us?
Yeah, for sure. Basically, OpenZeppelin is a security firm. We do a lot of audits to some of the top protocols in the space, but we also do some smart contract development. I guess most of the audience that is technical and has already done some smart contracts has already get in touch with OpenZeppelin contracts. So that's what we do.
Nice. And CJ, tell us a little bit more about your role in Interop Labs.
Yeah, so at Interop Labs, right, we maintain the Axelar network, which connects all kinds of different blockchains, agnostic of consensus mechanism. And for me, I'm a core engineer and I work at the protocol layer, either the Cosmos SDK layer or more recently, I write smart contracts in Cosmos Wasm. I'm building like the Axelar V2 stack that, makes our protocol even more open and programmable to be able to connect any chain that you can think of, really. So, nice. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's a lot of back end that people need but don't even see, and it's a lot of responsibility to hold those positions. So thank you for that. And Ernesto, let us know like about the OpenZeppelin contracts library. How can that be used? Like, how widely is it used? How much value? How is it secured?
Yeah, sure. So I think basically the smart contracts can be used by anyone because they are open source. And we've seen a lot of people, like copy pasting a contract. That's pretty common. But of course, our recommended way to consume these contracts is either to Foundry or Hardhat, which is our main distribution channel for them. Regarding some metrics, we definitely have some, but given the nature of the contracts library, it's also difficult to, get concrete information. Still, our best estimates are about $6 trillion in safe ERC20 transactions, which is it's a big number. It's quite amazing to see all of that value being secured by OpenZeppelin contracts. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And in regards to the total transaction share, we estimate something around 11%, which is also a lot. So I think the numbers are just pretty difficult to imagine, but it's great the impact we've had.
That's wow. That's a lot more than most companies pass through. So you're moving, you're responsible for a lot of money. It's pretty amazing that you do it all open source too. So people can copy and paste, like you said, and that's robust code, being able to copy, paste, and rely on it to be accurate and have a good community to help review that code and make sure it is safe to use. And after $6 trillion, I think that's pretty
yeah, it's pretty battle tested.
Yeah.
That's what we call it. But yeah, I definitely agree. It's amazing to have these like primitives for developers to just take and use in new protocols. So I think that's the most amazing thing that I can see from OpenZeppelin contracts. This ability for developers to just take the code and build something new out of them in a secure way. That's amazing.
It's amazing. And CJ, let us know about Axelar and how they differentiate from different interoperability protocols.
Wait, I wanted to double click on something. Did you say 11% of all transaction volume goes through OpenZeppelin contracts?
Yeah, that's probably not all networks because we don't have metrics in all of them. But I guess the main ones are there. Actually, these metrics are available. If you can go to cpl.in/contracts/metrics, you can see all of this data. It's our best estimate, but that's roughly the percentage. Yeah.
Wow, that's really impressive. That's pretty satisfying, right?
Yeah.
As a developer.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's of course a work that has taken years, and some other people from the team. So yeah, thank you anyway.
Yeah. What was your question, Rudy?
Well, my question was more about how Axar is different from different interoperability protocols. I mean, thanks to Axar, it also sounds like we're able to have OpenZeppelin work with different blockchains and reach that milestone of 6 trillion and 11%.
Yeah. So how's Axelar different? Well, there's a lot of interoperability protocols out there, so it's hard to give one answer. But some of The biggest differences are, first, Axelar is a hub and spoke model. So basically, when one chain connects to Axelar, they immediately are then connected to every other chain that's already connected to Axelar. So today we have like a little over 60 chains connected. So if a new chain connects, it immediately can send messages to and receive messages from 60 chains, right? So that's a huge network effect. As you get more integrations, it's just more and more powerful. The other thing that is pretty different is Axelar is very decentralized. There's no sort of like authoritative set of entities that validate, bridge transactions. The entities that validate transactions are just selected via proof of stake. So anyone can join the network and start validating transactions as long as they have enough stake. Most other interoperability protocols are not like that. It's like some sort of set list, or just some company that's running like 5 nodes and like that's their bridge, right? They're usually very centralized. So Axelar is one of the most decentralized interoperability solutions out there. The last thing is, and this is increasing with the launch of Axelar v2, but Axelar is programmable, and this is very unique because most bridges, when you think about them, talk about them, the first question is like, how does this work? Like, what's the underlying security mechanism? But for Axelar, the underlying security mechanism is not static. It can be custom to any particular connection. So like our Cosmos chains, right, are connected via IBC. That's a light client. A lot of the EVM chains are connected via this like voting mechanism. But really, like any chain you plug in, you can fully customize the way it's plugged into Axelar, and also change that over time. Like you can upgrade it, make it better, and stuff. So, and that's really really unique. And that's also the reason we can do that is because of the hub and spoke model. Because like your connection is totally isolated to the connection between your chain and Axelar. The other chains, like they don't see the details of that connection. It's abstracted away. So yeah, that's main differences in my mind.
Yeah, it sounds. I didn't know about the other details being abstracted away like that. That's that's interesting. Is that more of a security standard, just so it's
Uh,
safer
it's,
for others?
it's more of a modularity thing. Like, right, if you think about it, if you think about the opposite, imagine pairwise bridges where to send a message from Polygon to Ethereum, assume there's nothing in the middle, like that the proof is passed directly from Polygon to Ethereum. Then that means Ethereum needs to understand every proof type that's passed to it. And when you have some new bespoke chain, like there's a lot of chains out there, right, that have some novel consensus mechanism, like you then need to upgrade Ethereum. And that same situation occurs to every other chain in the network. Like when you add a new chain, all of a sudden you need to like upgrade every other connected chain. It's just not scalable. And sometimes it's not possible. Like that the chains don't really speak the same language, and there's no translation even possible sometimes. So it's not necessarily security. It's more about just modularity, that you just connect and everyone else doesn't need to know or change. And you can it's a scale thing, honestly, to be able to connect more and more chains and not care. Yeah.
Yeah, that brings me to my next question. Then, why should layer twos need more than a native bridge and a sequencer?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, right? So like, first of all, layer two might not just want to send a message back to Ethereum, right? It might want to send a message to another layer two or some other bespoke chain, right? It might want to send a message to Solana or I don't know, Sui or anything, right? And so yeah, your native bridge is not going to handle that case. Even in the case of layer two to layer two, it's still a little cumbersome to have to pass through Ethereum and then back and then to another layer two, right? Like to go over two layer two bridges, it's just cumbersome. Like there's usually a translation that's involved, and they might not again speak the same language. So using something like Axelar, where it's like we define one standard language, this is what interop looks like, this is what messages look like, this is how it works. Like just expand that, to all chains. It's a lot smoother for developers.
Yeah, I've noticed also a lot more acknowledgments going towards layer twos, interoperability, even at DevCon, and of course, Vitalik speaking about it. I mean, Ernesto, what is your viewpoint on the
Um,
public?
yeah, sure. I guess in regards to L2s, usually L2s, in my opinion, have like, this constraint of launching whatever they are launching, right? It can be an optimistic rollup, a secret rollup, whatever. But at the end, they have to deliver a product, and that makes a situation in which the smart contract level is not well standardized. So it's difficult for developers to actually, connect these bridges. So yeah, I just want to say that I really like this approach from Axelar, as seeing networks as a generic, entity that has to pass a message to the other side. I think that works pretty well for standardization. And the main problem right now is all of these specific implementations that differ from each other.
Nice. Yeah, and Axlar and OpenZeppelin have been working very closely together. And I see that there's a OpenZeppelin contracts wizard. Could you go a little bit deeper into that, Ernesto?
Yeah. So basically, the wizard is this tool that we created because we identified that some of the developers that are using OpenZeppelin contracts, they probably don't know or understand all of the components that go with a smart contract. Let's say you're building something like a governance system. You have to pick like the token you're going to use, which could be ERC20, ERC721. You also have to pick a boats contract or an extension for how to count boats, right? So it's kind of complex. You have to pick a lot of access control details, yada yada. So basically, we built Wizard in order to get developers to jump into OpenZeppelin contracts in a really quick way. So it's been working really great. It's an amazing tool to bootstrap a solid smart contracts project. And basically, we're using this to also drive some adoption to other technologies and protocols, right? So our main focus is to keep making Wizard a way in which contract developers can just go there and pick up, some components, build a system, and then deploy using Defender or some other tool they want.
Mm-hmm. And there's a specific contract that I think you're also working on too with Axlar, the cross-chain enabled contract, and also the overarching Axlar library. CJ, could you go a little bit deeper into those?
I think this Ernesto can take this one actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So can you repeat the question? This is about
the cross-chain enabled contract.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question because it is a primitive that we tried in the past. Actually, during the version 4 of the library, we had a version of cross-chain contracts, right? And the cross-chain enabled contract was basically like a way to try to standardize how we consume messages from other chains in one contract. But it became very difficult to keep up with all of the new layer 2s appearing and new chains. So basically, we are trying to rethink the approach about the cross-chain enabled contract, and that is what we will try to work on. The idea is to come up with this sort of adapter so people using OpenZeppelin contracts can just hook into using Axelar chain as well.
Yeah, with such a huge ecosystem of different chains, blockchains, smart contracts, EVM, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the ecosystem of crypto is just growing rapidly. And for one platform, one app, one dApp, one open source platform project, whatever it is, to be able to figure it all out isn't impossible at this point. We do need different tools to work together, and having it as open as possible so as many people can connect as fast as possible too. And I'm guessing that's what the Axor library is about. And CJ, could you expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, what you were talking about, we have so many different chains and ecosystems. Like, eventually, we want all that to be abstracted away, right? Because it's too much in the details. Like, you don't really see this in mature systems, right? People are not aware of like what cell network they're using, really, right? It just works, right? I use Verizon, use AT&T, and it just works, right? I don't have to be aware. I don't have to find a wallet on AT&T like to call an AT&T person, right? So that's like what we're trying to get at Axelar, and like the collaboration with OpenZeppelin, just making it easier for developers to build these interoperability contracts, just sort of moves us in that direction, where you kind of just abstract away the chain itself, what chain you're on, whether you're on a chain at all, hopefully one day. So yeah.
That's funny. You said the cell phone network issue. It's like, it reminds me of like Google, Android, and Apple, and you can't text each other through RCS. If you're an iPhone user, you know who's an iPhone user, and
Yeah.
it's just creates that stigma for some reason. Oh, you're not a blue bubble. And that's exactly a problem. That's what we experience in crypto too. And thanks to both of you, we're able to move past that and actually work together and collaborate. And people who are developing, like, how does, I guess, for the Axor library, how does this actually change the developer experience and improve interoperability, having this open ecosystem?
Ernesto, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think that one I can take that one. I agree that by having more more ways to abstract away the complexity for developers, it's way easier for them to build more complex protocols. So I definitely see like a lot of opportunity over there. It's just that right now, in my opinion, it's a coordination problem, right? Like all of these protocols, in a way, they should at least come together and try to standardize the way that messages are passed. So in this way, I can foresee some applications, like taking the same example as that you put with the cell phone carriers. You can use an Android and an iPhone, but ideally you can use any private key on any network with a different signing algorithm, whatever, using account abstraction, yada yada. Like you can build on top multiple primitives, but at the end of the day, one of the main things that users want is abstracting the chain away. So I guess we'll see a lot of new apps in this regard, as long as we can, coordinate with this problem, which I think we are doing. So like the ecosystem and the community is really pushing forward to that.
Yeah. And then you were talking about standards and changes. So at a protocol level, are there any EIPs underway? Anything that Axar or OpenZeppelin might propose in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, we see the need for like a standardization of interoperability, right? Where so different bridges don't speak different languages to make all bridges sort of speak the same language. That would be really great because then developers don't need to really learn the specifics of some bridge. They can just build generic cross-chain apps that work with all bridges, right, that adhere to this standard. So that's one thing that we definitely think is important. I think this just improves the time like it takes to develop some dApp, because everyone just knows like this is how interop works, this is how it's done, and the choice of, again, like what network to use, like what cell provider to use, like that's just a choice, and it doesn't matter. I'm still going to be able to make my phone call and send my text message in the same way, and we want that for Crosschain, that whatever bridge I use underneath, it doesn't really matter. I'm still going to be able to send my messages and have them arrive in the same way. So,
yeah, I would also add that I see a couple of other EIPs and ERCs on the ecosystem. But yeah, I guess not the problem, but the focus of these EIPs are pretty specific. I've seen some related to trade execution systems, cross-chain. So what is called an intent, right? So that is like a specific use case. But yeah, I think the main benefit will come from generic standardization. That would be awesome.
yeah, it's an interesting topic. A lot of EIPs that are about interoperability tend to be almost like application focused. Like intents it's like a layer on top of interoperability of just regular message passing. It's like some semantics of what you do with the message, but at the base layer, it's still just securely sending a message from one chain to the next. So yeah, a lot of these EIPs are actually at a layer higher than Axelar works. Like Axelar works at such a low layer in the interop stack that many things can be built on top of that. And that's always our focus, right? It's just message passing, and something like intents can be built on top, like chain signatures built on top, like cross-chain queries built on top of the stuff that Axelar builds at the very, very base layer.
And it's amazing when you are building something at such a low level, finding projects are building on top of you, not expecting what they're gonna make, and they're just making it. So you built it for a purpose, and you're seeing them build something. You're like, oh, that's creative. I didn't think they're gonna do that.
Yeah.
That must be a lot of fun seeing that happen.
Yeah, it's fun and it's interesting. Like we're really just trying to build connections. Like that's it. Connect to as many chains as possible. Make sure it's secure and fast. And then on top of that, like we don't make bets on what the apps are that build on top of that. And so it is pretty interesting. To be low in the stack like that, but like at a fundamental layer. So
CJ, where can everyone find Axlar, and where can they look for the latest roadmaps, developer docs, how to build on top of them? Where can they go?
Yeah, the best place is just to go to our docs website, docs.axelar.dev, and there's all kinds of stuff there about how Axelar works, how to connect to it, how to build on it, different apps and stuff like that. Also just a shout out to one of our biggest apps is Squid. Squid is a token bridging protocol built on top of Axelar, and it works very well. So if you want to try Squid, that's powered by Axelar, and it's a great app.
Awesome. Ernesto, where can everyone find OpenZeppelin? And if you're a developer, where can they find the docs to build?
Yeah, sure. So everything is in docs.openzeppelin.com. You can find everything regarding contracts there. And we also have some other libraries, for Stylus. We're planning new releases for Cairo as well. I think we just released something, which is great. So there is a lot of tooling for developers in multiple different ecosystems. And we also power everything with Defender. So if you want some automations and monitoring, Defender is the place to go. So everything can be found there. We are focused on providing the developer, the smart contract developer, like the full life cycle. Since the beginning, when they are building a smart contract, they can use Wizard. Then for deployment, they can use upgrades, plugins, or Defender in this case. Once everything is ready, we also suggest to take an audit with us, everything can be found in docs.openzeppelin.com and including our documentation for plugins too.
Wow. Full cycle. It makes it almost like no reason not to go to OpenZeppelin. And the whole thing is there. You make it easy, make it safe.
We're missing the cross-chain part, so that is on the way, right?
It's on the way, but yeah, it's definitely very appreciated, I'm sure, by many developers, and it's proven itself already too. So thank you both for joining me today. Is there any last things you're excited about for Interop Labs, Axelar, or OpenZeppelin that the people need to know?
No. Well, I mean, obviously many things, but I don't want to make my marketing people upset by announcing things before.
That means it's really good. If you can't let everyone know, that means it's really good.
Yeah. So nothing that I want to talk about here. But thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I will second that. So thanks for having us. I think the conversation is really interesting. And of course, we will keep working together. We have a couple of interesting things on the work. So we'll be announcing that in the future.
The suspense is there. We're ready for it. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.